Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, that's two Z's, two R's. I say it every show. I don't care about you mispronouncing my name or misspelling or whatever. I try really hard to spell everyone's names and pronounce them correctly. I do mess up every once in a while, but I do have to laugh when you guys listen to the show and you still can't spell my last name right and you send me emails and texts and stuff during the day. That's what I woke up this morning. I have like 3 texts out of all the texts and stuff from the episode being launched last night about, and everyone for some reason loves saying Bizzarro because even though it's Justin the Food Entrepreneurs, everyone calls me Bizzarro. Eventually that gets to know me. Guess it's catchy. And they spell it wrong. I'm just like, it's on the show notes. You see it. You were on the show. Like, I don't even know. You heard it, but it's okay. I love you guys very much. I love all of you guys. We are all imperfect humans, and I do some stupid things and misspell names or mispronounce them all the time. So thank you guys. I love you. That was a good laugh this morning. I appreciate you guys. You guys know who I'm talking about because I really went into a lot of discernment and like God's role in this. Do I just let it go? Is it a big deal? Am I going to embarrass someone? I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But then I'm like, I would want to know if someone did it. I would want to know. I want to be able to make amends and make it right. So, I didn't want to rob them of that dignity, I guess, in a way. With that being said, everyone, you can find us Instagram. You know where that is. You can find us on social media, Facebook, Instagram. We are just getting on Twitter and Threads now. We do have a private member Facebook group as well as the public-facing business page now. Events, summits, all the stuff that you guys are asking for as an audience, educational pieces, show notes, transcripts, stuff in Instagram and on Facebook that are educational, things about core values, bringing spirituality in your businesses. I took all the common questions that I've gotten over the last 6 years and I dumped them all into AI and I came up with themes. That's why you see the themes. And then within those themes, I filtered all the episodes. I downloaded all the episodes. I took all my notes, all the things on my computer for 24 years, dumped those all in, and then cross-referenced it with every scholarly thing I had, from getting my bachelor's to my master's to my master's of divinity. So all of it is sort of cross-reference, and then what the world does now is cross-reference everything. So it is all out there for you guys. I wanted to make sure there was truth in the information. It wasn't just opinion, that there was multiple opinions to make it look like truth. So, but anyway, I'm kidding. But at the same time, I wanted to make sure it was out there. So with that being said, I have a guest with us from Stockton, California, Jeremey from Smoke Meat BBQ in Stockton, California. How are you doing today? Smoke and meat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you go. I was like, man, I hope I don't have to correct it again.
No. Here I'm going to embarrass myself right here.
No, well, it was funny when you were saying all that because we get it all the time. We get smoked meat, smoking meats. That's the most common, smoking meats. But yeah, you'd think it's simple.
Wow. I know. I've done it many times with business names, and the most simple ones end up being the most complicated for some reason. Let's talk about this, Jeremey. Welcome to the show. Thank you for getting up bright and early. Well, ish. It seems early to me, I guess.
Yeah, no, and for barbecue, I got to sleep in.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I want to talk about all of that because there is a whole dedication to it. There's a whole lifestyle competitiveness to it for sure. So let's talk about, Jeremey, let's talk about your life. Let's talk about upbringing, culinary, what led you to be an entrepreneur, restaurateur, barbecue master, I believe is the proper term. They could go on all the accolades that get put on you guys. Chef, talk to me about all that.
My wife had to tell me that it was okay to put Pitmaster on my card.
Pitmaster,
and and I still cringe a little bit every time somebody calls me a chef because I've been in the restaurant industry since '99, so coming up on 25 years, and I was always a front of the house guy. I did take a little detour in 2004 and went to culinary school with my best friend. We, grew up in Vallejo and moved out to Scottsdale, Arizona to go to the Le Cordon Bleu program out there. But I didn't go with the express intent of becoming a chef when I got out. I loved, I knew I loved working in restaurants and I wanted to be a manager. But as you're probably well aware, there's a lot of front of house managers that just kind of they don't get it. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to be, somebody that people could learn from and look up to. And like, I had a handful of good managers, not too many in the beginning, like those kind of chain restaurants that everybody has in every town. And like the standout ones really stuck with me. And I didn't want to be the front of house guy that doesn't know anything about the back of the house. So I really just went there to learn how to be a good manager and, maybe one day own my own little spot. And eventually, got to do that as well.
We're talking several layers of complication here. Let's talk a little bit about the initial experience of restaurants, because you mentioned you like the experience. Let's talk about jobs, growing up, ambition. I mean, most people don't just end up in a restaurant because their parents are giving them a good allowance and they don't need to work, right? So there is some motivation there. There's a self-propelling sensation, motivation, energy, whatever you want to call it. Let's talk about sort of that around there, because you're young, you're in Vallejo, I believe you said, and you get the restaurant itch or the food itch, or it's always been there. Now you're just capitalizing on it.
Yeah. I mean, the necessity and the draw was money. I had just moved out of the house, living with my girlfriend, and I needed a job with, I at that point I had worked at Marine World, which is like Six Flags now in Vallejo, but it used to be more of like a animal based theme park, and then worked at Baskin Robbins for a little while. But, I was a teenager, really didn't have any experience or skills other than music, which is really tough to make money with. And I randomly, like, I went to, I'll never forget, it was June 4th, 99, went to, had my birthday dinner at Olive Garden with my family and really liked it. Like, man, that was cool. We don't go out, like that very much. And maybe I could work here. I went back on the 10th and applied. The manager just kind of was like, "Yeah, we'll give you a shot. You seem cool enough." It was really just like personality check.
Yeah, don't tell anyone this because I'm Italian, but I'm kind of jealous you worked at Olive Garden.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a great like. It was that particular restaurant with those people was just the perfect like kind of social cocktail that I needed to like just get hooked. I love people. I'm a giver. I'm a service kind of person just by nature. So for me, I looked at it as like, well, I get to just like hang out with these cool people all day, meet a bunch of other cool people, bring them food, and get paid to do it. So like, what's not to love? And then
Well, and what a
you
great
work.
company, right? Oh, go ahead.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, no, you're like Darden back in the day was a black. Like I had no problems. I was like,
Exactly.
man, like yeah, this is good stuff. I remember being just blown away by the training there. Like they're like I had never been through anything, like that. And later on in my career, I ended up at if Olive Garden is good, Cheesecake Factory is like Olive Garden on all the drugs.
Yeah, I can't even
It's,
imagine weighing that many. When I was in the hospital business, we had multiple diets across multiple hospitals, and everything had to be universal. And so, but that's a whole other menu. But anyway, go
oh
ahead.
yeah,
I love this. Let's talk about this.
yeah. About how Olive Garden or Cheesecake?
Both, I guess. Keep talking
Well,
about
I
your
mean,
experience, but I mean, I agree with you. The training and the experience there is a beast.
yeah. I mean, and that is something that I like one of the things I wish I was actually doing better at right now in my own place, which is pretty, ironic. I've always loved working for companies that invested a lot into training. RUI, I think it was Restaurants Unlimited Incorporated, owns a bunch of restaurants all over, and it's like the same formula where they find a great location by the water. It's the same brand, but they give it a different name. Skates on the Bay in Berkeley was the one I worked at. They again had like, that was like, for me, that was the next level. It was like, okay, past the chain, like the Olive Garden Chevys, Chevys is where I went after Olive Garden. Then it, you know, really jumped up to the next level where there's more development than just, this is the menu, this is how we do things. And I was blown away at Olive Garden because I got to taste wine. I was like, holy shit, like what? Okay, I get to sit at work and drink wine and eat food. Awesome. Once you step up to that next notch, then there's not just taste these wines on the menu. They'll bring in wine reps and liquor reps and have a more educational class. Like, okay, we're going to learn about Pinot Noirs, or we're going to talk about bourbon, or I got to at Black Hawk Grill in Danville do a Louis XIII tasting. Like that was incredible.
Just would it?
Yeah, and then
It's quite.
uh,
Go on. I love this. Keep going.
and then the final, for me, the final evolution of, and this is jumping way further down the path of my career, but the final evolution of training for me is Cheesecake Factory. I mean, that place. So I worked there right before COVID. So I had 1 year and then COVID hit. And I had already been, GM and operations manager at, a couple different places before that in San Francisco and Palo Alto. But Cheesecake Factory to me, like at that point, I already made my decision that I was going to own my own restaurant. And I was like, okay, well, I need the master class. And I had a friend in the company who, filled me in on how they do it. And I mean, it was, I don't know, 2 or 3 months of just intense training and studying, like, your full 50-hour week. But it was, for me, I got to train at the San Francisco location on top of Macy's and Union Square. And it's just, you just get thrown into the fire, and it's just this bombardment of information and new food and new stuff. And it was one of the most difficult and rewarding things that I'd done at that point, but I learned so much there. It was absolutely incredible.
Let's talk a lot about this stacking of skills a little bit, the chef skills, the experience. You go into school seeking diversity in your knowledge, basically seeking more, seeking to be a more well-rounded human. And what you get in seeking that is way more than you bet on in terms of uncapping your knowledge or potential. The experiences, let's talk about a little more detail, because you're getting a lot of education, whether it's wine, bourbon, food, different styles of food, different types of cooking in the restaurants, in this type of concept, the way that they grew and the way that they did. So let's talk about that experience and the value in it, and sort of the skills and lessons you feel are most valuable that catapulted you forward.
And that's a great point, because that's how I wish I had taken this approach earlier in my career. But it was, a few years in after culinary school, when I was serving at Skates on the Bay, and I really took notice of like how important the training was and how broad it could be. I mean, they had somebody from Fiji come in. I mean, I know it was a sales rep, and the whole ta-da at the end was, if you add a bottle to each check, then you earn this much extra, blah blah blah. But you do learn about water. And one of the things that I love specifically about barbecue is the community is very open. They're all very willing to share their knowledge. I will sit there. Like if you come into the restaurant and it's slow and you ask me a question about brisket, I will likely forget what I'm doing and we can talk. And I'll tell you, I'll tell you everything we do, every step. And that's how, like, I love the disbursement of information. And like we can all learn so much from everybody else. If you just, every restaurant that I've worked at, like you said, there's, training here, little classes there, things you learn here. It might be from a person, it might be from a rep, it might be from a manager, a coworker, a guest. There's all these different places in your journey that people give you information. And if you just pay attention and actually take it to heart, or at least consider it, it's really, you kind of like level up without even trying. You just take all the little bits from all the different things and then put them together the way that it makes sense to you. And that's what I do at work with my staff. Is I'm all the time, if something goes wrong, or if they're just, I only have a handful of people, but I have some really dedicated, wonderful people that really care about what we do. And like Angela in particular will ask about, like, why is this meringue for the banana pudding not, setting up right? And, I'll pull back to this, a video that I saw, I think it was like Leroy and Lewis, where they were talking about like their 4th of July party, and somebody was making a dessert with a meringue on it. And she was like, oh, you can't over whip meringue. And I was just like, hey, maybe don't worry about it so much like you do the whipped cream. Let it go. Just walk away. Just let it go. Don't worry. You can't over whip it. It'll be fine. And, that one little video, that one little sentence somebody said that one time could end up being something that fixes, one of your problems that you get, 10 years down the road.
No kidding, right? That seed planted will eventually grow sometimes. It just sits there dormant.
Yeah. And like one of my yesterday we were having a conversation about beans, and they were, they got pulled a little early. They were a little underdone. And one of my newer guy, Dan, was like, well, what if we took some of them out and pureed them and then put them back in to thicken it up because it's a little soupy? And I was like, oh, garbure. What? And that was like the one. I had the saucier test in culinary school, and like I had a 99 or whatever, I missed one question, and garbure was that fucking question. And it just, it stuck in my head, it bugged me, and it's always been sitting there. And then 25 years or 20 years later, yes, that's called garbure. I mean, there's so much useless, well, what I think is probably useless crap rolling around in my head that may end up being useful someday.
That's interesting, because I mean, what's actually going on there is when you puree a vegetable, guys, you starch it, you bring out the starches in it also. It becomes a thickener, so you don't need something like a cornstarch or a flour also. Gravies, Thanksgiving, like you can avoid it by cooking your turkeys or stuff with vegetables and then pureeing the vegetables and putting them in with the au jus from the turkey, and you don't need the thickener. But I think not many people know that. I think we just default to the easy thing, which is like cornstarch or whatever. So I like this. Let's talk about barbecue, okay? Let's talk about it, because going from all the culinary training, all the bourbon, the wine, people are probably like, whoa, that's interesting, barbecue. But let's talk about the leap there, and also talk to me about the leap of like, I'm going to do this on my own. It's time to take this show on the road, solo act. But so talk to me about both of those.
That was funny. That reminded me of like I remember when I was just dating my wife. This was 2018 probably. She asked, like, what do you want to do? I was at the time I was general manager at a place in San Francisco called Alioto's that I believe didn't make it through COVID, but it's a pretty old school, like historic Fisherman's Wharf restaurant, family owned for almost 100 years. They almost made it. And, the absolute antithesis of a San Francisco Fisherman's Wharf crab and seafood restaurant. Side note, I'm allergic to shellfish.
Okay.
How's the Totino?
I don't know how that happens, but go on, go on.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta have a taster.
I was 30 when it came on. Yeah. Oh no, I mean, you just got to trust everybody else. Like,
yeah,
I'm probably gonna put shrimp on the menu for Lent this year on Fridays, and I have no idea what it tastes like, but everybody said it was good, so cool. Let's run it.
All right. So talk to me about running a restaurant that is specifically in the thing that you're allergic to. Out of all places, in a place surrounded by all the things that you're allergic to. Because I've stayed at those hotels, the Courtyard and the Marriott Fisherman's Wharf, because I did all the Kaiser Permanente hospitals we did as a company at Food Service Partners for 24 years. So I stayed a lot down there. I mean, we bounced around different places just to vary it, but I know the area so well, including the Bushman. So that's something to talk about some other time.
One of my favorite things about that place was just when it was slow, I'd go out we had like a little balcony so if anybody hasn't been to Fisherman's Wharf and eaten at Alioto's, it's a 3-story building. They have like casual dining, just come in, grab a sandwich and a salad on the first level, and then take stairs or elevator up to the 3rd floor. And that's I think people throw around the word fine dining a little too much. It's not fine dining, but it's the elevated experience, if you will. And there's a balcony up there where we would, let people just go out and have a cigarette or whatever. I would just sit out there and watch the street performers on the corner, and it was the best time. But it was, I mean, yeah, it was just, I just couldn't eat the food.
I was 19 the first time he got money out of me, where he scared me. 19 years old, so embarrassed. I'm pretty sure a little pee leaked down my leg. I was so frightened.
I've seen people jump into the street.
And definitely gave him the money. I was like with my father at the time. We were just early on in California, probably 98, 99. I think it was 99, somewhere around there. But I never did it again. I always look for him because like that experience, but he gets it. You just don't see him. It's the weirdest thing. It clearly, the bush doesn't belong there, but because we're so used to seeing bushes everywhere, it blends in, and he just, oh, it's an experience. It's great to watch also.
Your brain's going to fill in the blanks. If it looks like it should be there, it probably should be there.
Yeah.
And, it just looks like every other bush until it's there.
But that's a great location. What a great location.
Yeah. It's way better if you have your own parking spot like I did. But that was the only thing that wasn't, incredible about it, was that it's freaking Fisherman's Wharf and it's packed. But as somebody running a restaurant right there, it's awesome that it's Fisherman's Wharf and it's packed. We would go from, and that's one of the things real quick that so here, so I'm used to the bigger restaurants in the Bay Area, like Alioto's, for example, was the best example of how towards the end of the year, you get busy with the holidays and the company parties and events. The sales are going up and up and up and up, and December's incredible, breaking records. And then Alioto's, man, January 2, dead. Nobody's out there. You can park on the street. I mean, it would just fall off a cliff. The restaurant would be absolutely empty. I didn't believe them the first year. I started in November, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, it's gonna get real slow." I'm like, no, 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 dude, don't wait. Look at this. Like, look how busy it is. And sure enough, it fell off a cliff. And I was kind of expecting the same thing here in Stockton with my restaurant, and it was kind of the exact opposite. We tanked September, got better up through December, but still nowhere near where I thought we were going to be. And January was back to like pre-September, and we had restaurant week out here. That was huge. And then Valentine's Day, surprisingly for barbecue, was great. And and to your earlier question about why barbecue, my wife was like, I met her at Alietta's, and I was we were sitting down at home talking. She asked me, like, what do you want to do? I was like, oh, a little barbecue place. She's like, what the heck? Fucking barbecue? Like, when have you, like,
I know that was me
never
too.
mentioned it to
Yeah,
her.
it was like there wasn't a mention of or anything in your background or liking of
No,
it.
yeah, no. I've always really liked, I really like food. I'm a big dude. I'm a meat eater. My dad passed when I was younger, but he loved Texas. He loved barbecue. He was, the guy that would do that, 72-ounce steak challenge. Went twice and got it the second time because he figured out that the dude just talks to you the whole time, so you can't eat. And so Staedlers don't play around when it comes to the meat. And but you when you're looking for jobs, you just it's the driving factor for me has always been, well, where can I make good money and not be miserable. It's like I have to have a financial threshold for the job to make sense, because in the Bay Area, like, it just gets more expensive and more expensive. And I kept moving to, from Vallejo to Richmond to El Sobrante to Oakland to Alameda. And every zip code change means I need to make a paycheck change. But like I was saying with the good people at Olive Garden, like, the only thing that'll make me happy somewhere is being around good people. I'm not so concerned about the food. I mean, it helps when I can eat it, but you spend more time with the people at work than you do your family, especially once you become a manager. My wife would kill for 50 hours a week with me, and I would kill for 50 hours a week with her, but she, now we both work way more than that. I would kill for just be a worker for 50 hours. But with barbecue, it was, it never, it doesn't seem, or at, in the standard restaurant, kind of structure, barbecue isn't the one that you look at and like, ooh, I'm gonna go manage a barbecue restaurant, make a bunch of money, especially in California, because they're few and far between and they're not typically very huge. Volume dictated everything for me in the beginning. But the the thing that really pushed me to wanting to open a barbecue restaurant was when I was, I don't know, late 20s, maybe early 30s. My brother and I, he stayed in Vallejo, so we didn't see each other all the time, and we would always, take each other out for dinner for our birthdays. He took me to this place in Oakland called the Brick Pig's House. And he had figured out the most efficient, he got, one of those beautiful mind type kids. He figured out the most efficient way to order the best, the appropriate quantity of everything they had on the menu. And we go to this little hole in the wall, like as big as my living room, which is not huge. I think 2 to 4 tables on the wall and a little walkway in between with a counter. We sit down and start eating, and the brisket was like the last thing I went for because I'd never had good brisket in my life. I thought I just didn't like brisket because brisket was dry and flavorless. And theirs was really good. And it kind of, I don't know, something kind of clicked. And I started looking around and was like, okay, if these guys are doing it here with what 500 square feet of front of house at least, it's a good model. I like, and they weren't even counter service. I didn't learn about counter service until later, but I wanted something that wasn't such a big machine because I've spent a lot of time in those big machines and it's fun. And when it's rocking and rolling, man, it's a great time. It's lucrative. It's fun. It's all sorts of rewarding. You get all the good stuff. But when it's not, and those gears are grinded and things aren't working well, it's like just drudgery. And I didn't see how something with so few gears couldn't run smoothly. And that's what, we ended up doing was, years later when I found, you know, I think I don't know, it must have been like 2016, 17. Central Texas barbecue started becoming popular. Aaron Franklin became like a pretty well-known name. I did, deep dive into all that and just really fell in love with the culture. Like I was saying earlier, everybody was just so open and free with information. You'd see, pitmasters from all over hanging out and doing, events together. And it's like competitive, but not like, and that's me. Like I love a good competition. I love a good challenge, but the goal for me is never to rub someone's face in the dirt. I much prefer to, work cooperatively, lift people up, help other people get better so because they can help me get better. I don't know who it said, but, or who I heard say it, but, I've always tried to surround myself with people who are better at things they do than I am. Even, as a manager or an owner, because now not only do they get to learn from me, but I get to learn from them. Right? Yeah, barbecue. It's a lot more than just making a plate. Throwing not to disparage any other type of cuisine, but it's not throwing some shrimp and sauce and pasta in the pan and putting it on a plate. It's watching a fire for 12 hours and you know painstakingly trying to leave a quarter-inch fat cap on top of the brisket and like all the little details that add up to make you know the whole greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay. Wow, I have a lot of questions. My mind is sort of up. It's like you took I went from the frying pan to the fire all on my own. I just fell right off that thing, just burning up here. Okay, you have all the skill in the world. Let's talk about you've got like, I'm just, obviously we can always gain more, but I mean, you've got a ton of it. You're deciding you're going to go barbecue. You go outside of San Francisco. I guess maybe barbecue might do better out in Stockton than in San Francisco. Obviously, the expense is way less, I would assume. But I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about, okay, you have a lot of skills. One of the skills that you've built is the capacity to gain knowledge and to grow yourself. I want to focus on that a little bit because when you decide you're going to pivot, you're going to go at barbecue, it's at a left field. You have to learn the skill, right? I mean, obviously you have the basics, the knowledge, the chemistry of the way food works together, spices, all that stuff. And then, you have education, you have experience, you have exposure to the world and all different places. But now you're going to take on barbecue. Let's talk about first moving to Stockton, the thought process there. And then the second part is then how do you gain and progress and pursue this specific skill, barbecue as a whole? Because there is a lot of different variations. There's sauce, there's dry, there's smoked, there's 10 million different styles of barbecue within the barbecue industry, which is, I think we see it as competitive because the competition's, and it is, but at the same time, this is a growing industry that worldwide, guys. Like it's American barbecue is a worldwide phenomenon, just so we're all aware of that. But anyway, Stockton, why Stockton, and then this barbecue journey, because I can't wrap my head around all of it just yet.
Yeah, no, the Stockton part is pretty easy. It's just like that. That's where my wife is. So we went to school together. She's from Vallejo originally. We went to school together, or we didn't. Sorry, we didn't go to school together, but we were in. She's a year ahead of me, and we were both in band. So we, knew each other from music things, and we were both, well, she's still really good. I could be good if I practiced, but muscles are muscles and minor action.
Yeah, I know that one.
Sure. Yeah. So we did a lot of like extracurricular type, night bands at, community colleges and other cities and stuff. And she would drive us there because she had the van. And we, after high school, she went off to UOP in Stockton to become a music therapist, and then got married, had kids, built a life out here, continued to, educate herself, got a couple MBAs, and then her doctorate of psychology. And so she's not leaving Stockton anytime soon, at least, while the kids are kids, there's no leaving. So I ran into her at Alioto's when in San Francisco. She was out for dinner there, and that was how we reconnected. And then later we started dating, and it was really like I had to come out here. Like opening my own place wasn't going to work in the Bay Area. I had no money for that. There was not. I mean, maybe if I had gone to Beans and Rice, saved every penny for 5-10 years, something like that. But then there would still be the she lives in Stockton thing. So I moved to Stockton, to be with her. But the bonus was, at least at the time, she was doing pretty well. So I could focus on opening, what would initially be a catering company. And I mean, yeah, the whole creation of, the path from, quitting my job and moving to Stockton to start it from nothing to what we have now is a whole nother story. But it was basically because of her, I had if I was left to my own devices, I would probably still be managing another restaurant for somebody else and thinking someday I'm going to own my own place. Someday I'll do this. Someday I'll do that. And she was the one that was like, dude, why fucking someday? Like you have the passion. You have you've been running these massive, these giant and, very successful restaurants for a long time. Why not do your own? And I would have had no, basically just like confidence or, belief in myself that it was something I could do if I didn't have her. Like I'd still be, helping make somebody else a whole lot of money, which is cool. It's fine. It's more and less stressful, but yeah, she's pretty much, 100% the reason I moved out here. Barbecue just came from that. That was the second part.
How did you gain the skill? Like you obviously seek skill, you talk to people, you build friendships, mentors, whatever, because you've got to like, is she barbecue family? Let's talk about that then. Or she likes barbecue food? Like, because I'm not.
So it was because.
Well, and I want to anchor something real quick. And just for anyone out there, there's this weird saying, and I can't remember exactly how it goes exactly, but it's something along the lines of God, like this is biblically a little bit, but it's true. When God created man, man just sat around fishing, eating. He wasn't really mastering the world. There wasn't any of that going on. God's like, oh man, what did I do? Hey, give me a rib. Here's woman. Now man build world, because now woman's there for man to build the world for. But it's true if we think about it, there's this leaving of the family that we talk about, but it's also a biblical representation of leaving what's comfortable and going out and being men on our own when we meet our wife and building our own families and our own legacies, including correcting any past ones or whatever, if we want to think about it that way. But that's sort of what goes on here. And what does go on, if we really think about it, I'm much more inspired when I have a family to build a future for as a man. It makes providing and protecting that core purpose that much more purposeful. And so I just wanted to anchor that. Then we can jump into sort of, now you got to collect the skills to be a pit master.
Well,
Yeah, I won't call it that, but that's sort of what the
it's
escalation
fine.
is, right?
I've come to terms with it by thinking of it as a job title, not a declaration.
I know, that's why I don't like, people are like, "Yo, you're the CEO." I'm not the CEO. We will never. I'm a managing member of my business now, and am I in charge?
Well, and
Yes.
you are. I mean, I don't know if on paper you are the CEO, then you are the CEO. I mean,
Yeah,
CEO again. It's just a freaking job.
I know
Like
it is. It's
it
just a
just
job.
means you're in charge of the money, bro.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. But yeah, I'm always
it's
like,
not.
God's my CEO for sure, because anytime I try to take over a lesson, it's not going well. So yeah, but anyway, go ahead. Yeah,
But yeah, I
barbecue,
mean,
growing master, Jedi.
they're the yeah. She and the kids are the thing that makes it much easier to get up in the morning. When like you said, when you're doing it for someone else, and now not only do I have my family, but I have all my staff and their families, and it's like if I don't show up, if we don't put together a good product, then nobody eats, and that's a pretty strong motivating factor. But when because I lived in Alameda in an apartment, there was like it was illegal for me to barbecue anywhere. I had no way to actually practice this thing that I wanted to do. So what we did was, we went in and got just a little char griller offset, and it wasn't even like the good cheap one. I mean, it was good for her because it was like a little offset with a gas grill attached to it because she also wanted to be able to cook
Uh,
on it and just
uh,
grill some chicken or something because
yeah.
Stockton's super hot in the summer and we don't like cooking inside. So I get, like it's the smallest little thing. Like I had to put a big brisket like at a 45-degree angle. And I would drive. So at the time when I started actually cooking briskets, I was working at Cheesecake Factory already. And I had Wednesday, Thursday off. So I would work my week Tuesday night. I would either hopefully already have gone to work with all my stuff to go to her house, but I would, head to Stockton Tuesday night after work from Walnut Creek and sleep there, wake up in the morning, barbecue all day long. And and then, just, and then turn around and go back home the next day for work on Friday. And we had subscribed to Masterclass because I saw that Aaron Franklin had
Oh, I
a
love that series too. I'm a big fan. Huge, big fan of all of it, all the different people that come on there. That's a great show. Anyway, go ahead.
no, that app is absolutely fantastic because they have so many people from so many different fields. I mean, I want to say Thomas Keller has at least three, definitely two that I've watched,
Yeah.
but between two and four different master classes in there. There's so much. It just of course it's all educational, but it's just really interesting. Artists and authors and just every field you can imagine. They've got something in there. I wish they were paying me, but yeah, the masterclass is really really good. And I would all day long sit in the backyard with my big hat because Stockton was just hot as balls. And I was, coming from the Bay where it's 70 and overcast 360 days a year. Like I was not used to this. I'd have, giant ice water, sometimes beer, big hat, and sitting under the shade and trying to be cool and just watching this masterclass like until my phone dies. And over and over, I probably watched that thing 7 times. Like every time I did a brisket, I would just throw it on, watch it. Like I knew when all the corny jokes were coming. And then after I, rode that into the ground, I had reading books and, like a sausage making book, Aaron Franklin's book, of course. I got a Byron Mixon book. I would thought just like there was so much. I had all this time while had this singular task of keeping a fire steady that I could just keep researching. And I went so heavy on brisket at first that like I was literally intimidated to do ribs. Like people are so particular about ribs. Like there's I mean if you ask me, like Central Texas barbecue is kind of the Cadillac of barbecue. Like Texas Hold'em at the Cadillac of barbecue. It's it takes skill. It is low and slow at its finest, and there's nothing in the way, nothing in between the meat in your mouth. It's not brisket covered in sauce. It's not ribs dredged, in sticky sweet. You know, not to say that Kansas City or Memphis doesn't have incredible barbecue, but the sauce is boss out there. And in in Texas, it's more just smoking meat. Like that's why I called the company Smoking Meat, because I believe that's all you need for a good barbecue is smoking meat. Like something magic happens when you put a piece of beef in front of a fire. Aaron Franklin will tell you the chemistry behind it, and I love that. Like it's a huge thing for me. But there is something more than that, because I've run dirty fires and clean fires and done things the right way and the wrong way, and it's like I hate it sounds cocky, but like I've never made a bad brisket. Of course, compared to my standards now, I've made many ugly. Oh, just like I look at old pictures and oh
A grieving
God, like
skill, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, geez, what did the kid trim this? Like, no, what's going on over here? And it's just always wanting to be a little better. I've probably watched up until right, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so before we opened the restaurant. I had probably consumed every single video on brisket on the internet. I mean, every bit of information I could take in, I was about it. And we make a very good brisket. But I was so scared about those ribs, bro. I I don't like disappointing people, and it's like our greens are the side that I love and hate, because if you didn't grow up like if you grew up eating your grandma's greens and your mom's greens taste like your grandma's greens, and now your greens taste like your mom's greens taste like your grandma's greens, any greens that don't taste like those greens are not good greens.
Yeah,
And
that's a dangerous one.
it is. Our original recipe was like what I like. It was really well balanced. It was a little spicy, it was a little sweet, it was a little tangy. It went really good with meat. And that's how we think of, all of our sides. You're going to be eating it with fatty brisket and pulled pork and sausage and ribs. I want them to complement each other, not like, if you get our coleslaw, I'm not assuming you're going to sit down with a pint of coleslaw and eat the whole thing by itself. I mean, cool if you do. I've done it before, but
I I can eat coleslaw like that and peanut butter, by the way, but those two things for
Don't
some
even
reason.
get me started on like peanut butter. Yeah, I had to make a skimpy PB&J for one of the kids today because I might have gone a little too heavy myself.
Yeah, yeah, been
Um,
there, been there. Mm.
uh, but that's that's the fun part of the fun and terrifying part of if you're somebody like me who doesn't want to let people down. Like I I want to be reliable. I want to be consistent. Like for the restaurant, like I want to be consistent more than anything. I want when you come in that potato salad is good and it's good next week and the week after and the week after. And the brisket is, as consistent as we can get. It's, we're still very small. We only have a couple people to do things. And, sometimes we have a lot on our plate. And, one brisket might be left in there a little too long or it might come out a little early. But, because I'm so like attached to it, if like a brisket's too tight, I'm either not going to serve it, which doesn't happen too like it's got to be, there's a few tests that people will run a slice of brisket through. It has to hang on your, flop over on your finger and, bend easily, hang on its own weight, and pull apart easily all at the same time. So you can't overcook it, you can't undercook it. And if we get one of those briskets where it just barely passes the pull test, like you can pull it apart, but it's still got a little tug to it, I will degrade myself and tell them every single person that comes in the line, it's like, hey, just so you know, I blew it. You might need a knife. But if you don't get a disclaimer from me, then it's probably pretty damn good. And that's really all. Like there's, like I've said earlier a couple times, there's all these different places that you pick things up, and it's but with me and learning the skills of barbecue, it was just doing it over and like as much as I could on my own. Like my neighbors and my family ate a lot of barbecue. We would, every birthday for a couple of years, it was like, oh, you're getting a birthday brisket, and that's what it was. I just ate, slept, drank barbecue. In knowledge, I didn't literally drink brisket, but I would if I could.
Yeah, and the jus and stuff that comes out of
Yeah,
the there's all sorts
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
crazy stuff that's
Yeah, man. There's like, so we cook in a foil boat. I don't know if you or anybody listening
yeah.
is not familiar with it. There's a couple ways
Yeah, let's
to cook
talk about that.
brisket.
Yeah. And why did you choose Texas specifically? You got into it, you said specifically you like it, but it took you obviously
Fun.
searched. So you tried so many different, so it's the cleanliness to it, the purity almost you
Well,
feel.
yeah, just it seems, it's like so one of the things that I learned, and this may be incorrect. I don't know where, I forget where I read it, but the offset smoker, I don't like it's not that old, right? It's like guys working in the oil field that had propane tanks lying around that were like, oh, I bet you we could build something out of this. Like, it's not an ancient art, it's not like Mexican or Hawaiian barbecue where you're burying it under the ground. You got banana leaves and coals, and it's like just this, like that to me is like just sorcery and beautiful. And I absolutely like. I can't wait. We're going to Mexico next month, and I can't wait to just jump into all that food. But it's it's like old. I don't know. I guess yeah. It's 2025. Yeah, it is. It's old school, but it's very, I don't know, like the new school approach to Texas barbecue is very precise. I like that there's quantifiable things that, I can say, yes, this is a good brisket. It tastes good. It bends like this. It pulls like this. It lays like this. It jiggles when you smack it. Like, it's nice. And it's just pure. It's just like, it's smoking meat. Like that, the first time if you haven't had a good bite of fatty brisket, like a Texas style brisket, that bark, it's like it's tender meat. It's fatty, but it's not like gobs of fat. A lot of people get scared. Oh, I don't want fatty. Give me the lean. Give me the lean. It's like there's just as much unrendered. There's just as much solid fat on the lean as there is on the fatty. It's just more marbly.
Yeah,
It's like
exactly.
it's like you want a fillet or you want a ribeye.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just one just has more marbling than the other. And with the bark, there's three there's three different ways typically that people will finish a brisket. I guess four. So like the first is the old school peak butcher paper. You cook it to, depending on who you are, anywhere from 160, 180 degrees around there internal. And then you take it off, you wrap it in butcher paper. A lot of people are putting tallow on it now, which I think is totally cool, but I think too much of it kind of dulls the flavor on the bark. And that's cool, but you get this kind of like the bark is real. It's soft, because it's been essentially steaming for the last part of the cook, and then you hold it overnight warm, and it continues to sit there and steam in there, and it gives you a really soft, tender brisket, but at the sacrifice of texture on the bark. Then you do there's wrapping it in foil. They call the Texas crutch. Real easy to get tender brisket that way, but you're going to have the softest bark possible. And then there's Goldie's, with people are calling it now the Goldie's method. They're the number one ranked barbecue spot. The last time Texas Monthly came out with their top 50, and they cook unwrapped the entire time, and then they rest them in foil. They wrap them in foil at the end and rest them overnight in the foil. But we do the Leroy and Lewis foil boat method, which I think, if I remember correctly, they accidentally discovered it like Friedman's or wherever he was before that. Leroy and Lewis, by the way, big shout out. Super nice, incredible people. Like, when we went to Austin, they were just amazing. Evan is the coolest dude. They're super hospitable, and like most everybody else in the barbecue community, they are wide open with all the knowledge. I've taken so many things directly from them because he takes a really cool approach. I'm in no where, I may have the title of pitmaster, but that dude he got an actual Michelin star last year. Huge shout out to them. But they made famous the foil boat method, where instead of wrapping it completely in foil, you wrap the edges. You lay the brisket down on foil, roll it down around the edges, so that it comes up to the just a bit, to where the fat cap is on top. So you get to protect the lean and the bottom of the brisket from drying out in excess heat. Keep a little of that liquid in there, while you never cover the fat cap on top. So you get a great render, and you get this crispy, crunchy bark that is just like, it's out of this world. And that's when we get barbecue guys to come in and they ask us about, like, dude, how do you get this bark? Like, I've cooked a ton of brisket. I can never get this bark. Do you wrap? You're like, yeah, I wrap in paper. Well, stop. Like, you just you can't get this kind of bark if you wrap it completely. Period. And that is probably the biggest thing that people notice, even if you've had good brisket before. When you have like the Leroy and Lewis, the boat style brisket, it's like, man, this is another level because and you know there are people that prefer a softer bark, and I have no problem with it. Yeah, good brisket's good brisket. I ain't mad at you either way. Like I'm never gonna be like unless it's bland or it's dry, like or yeah, I don't know. A tight brisket is pretty rough. It's like kind of my pet peeve at the moment.
Damn.
It's it's finding that magical spot. There's I don't know. I remember a quote at culinary school that was up on the ceiling. Like you're walking down like a big corridor, and there's this big painted quote. Forget who it was, or I remember. I just don't want to butcher the name. Priat Savarin, something like that. Very, very, very famous culinary genius. And it was like there's 15 minutes in the life of a pear when it's perfectly ripe or something like that. And brisket's the same way. You have this window where it's larger than 15 minutes, I think. But you got this window to where it's if you pull it too early, it's going to be tight. It's not going to pull apart. If you pull it too late, you're going to shred it. It's going to like when you cut through the fatty part, man, that whole thing is just going to turn into chopped beef. And we've overcooked a couple, we've undercooked a couple, but we usually do a pretty decent job of at getting them right. And I haven't I've only pulled a brisket 2 nights in the last probably 8 months because I come in early, get everything going. We have somebody that's there later, and he does all the pulling. And those, I'd stayed with him a while for the beginning of my day at around 5:36 to 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock when they got off to show him, the right time to pull it, what to check for, blah, blah. And once he started nailing it, it's like, all right, cool. That's something I don't have to worry about. And that's kind of like, for me, the dream is to be able to have everything from the quality of food, the consistency of the food, and the quality of service not change when I'm not there. That for me is like that's the goal right now, right? Like you always, well, hopefully, you always have goals and you hit it and it's like, okay, great, I need a new thing to do. Like my wife is the master of that. Like never satisfied with anything. She will get a new thing and like, okay, cool, got that, done there, been there, done that. I need a new mountain to climb. And I mean, she's incredible. I'm not quite as smart, but I do know my way around a smoker now. Whereas, shit, honestly, what was I now? Blah, 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 blah. 10 years ago, like I had never touched a brisket. Shit, I don't even 8 years ago. I didn't cook my first brisket till probably 2018.
Yeah, wow. I love this. Let's talk about building the restaurant, designing the menu, because we've talked about the most essential piece to your business now, which is the brisket. That's the piece, that's the anchor. Now, how do you build around it? A menu, a restaurant, making sure you have the right stuff there that you need to cook all the things that you want to make sure that it now meets the barbecue style. Can we talk about that? I have about 15 more minutes and I think we can cover this and that. And I just want to make sure that because I think it's important. And I'm going to ask you to sign up again, Jeremey, just so the audience hears that before we go into this next question, because I have like a lot more questions for you. I'd love to do a part 2 with you. But anyway, let's go into the leap from intrapreneur to entrepreneur in a way, anchoring against the brisket for the menu, and sort of how all that came together, because we obviously see your passion for barbecue, which you didn't even know was inside of you. It's a seed that lay dormant for many, 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 many years. So I think now you're building a whole business around something that lay dormant.
Yeah, it was. I mean, by the time we actually got to move into the restaurant, I had a pretty clear vision of what like my ideal version smoking meat barbecue was, which was, well, maybe someday be realized when there's, money. But I started it as a catering company of one, working out of the Stockton Gun and Bocce Club. Big shout out to Colorado. he's he's a hell of a dude. I'll leave it at that. But Heritage Dining got me through. That was a commercial kitchen for a couple years. I built a small, very small following. I think I had like maybe 500 followers on Instagram, and just really slowly, inefficiently built this thing. Got to the point where I had to actually quit, get a job for like 6 months, GM of a beer hall in Sacramento. Moved, that place closed due to some permit things, but it's like when you're supposed to do something, you are told by things greater than yourself that you need to do those things. And like that place closed. A meat market right down the street, like 7 blocks away from my house. Finally, the guy that owned it before, the lease was up, and it was like it's close. It's not the best setup kitchen. Like it's barely a kitchen. It's like I've had apartments with bigger kitchens than this, but it has the backyard. It had like it had wood paneling, or just not even paneling, like just wood wall. I mean, it's perfect, made for barbecue. We don't have enough time to get in the whole story of actually getting in there, but the only thing that I had was a busted ass stove with no convection, maybe a 24-inch flat top, and 3 burners that actually work, that are very low, like they're not great. It's like a 150-year-old Wolf oven.
Oh, wow.
Still putting in. I mean, it's not really that old, but it's putting in work.
That's like an old Hobart mixer, man. Those things just keep going.
Dude. Yeah, no, it's not going to stop. Yeah. Like I'm sure one of these days I'll be able to get that 4th burner to work again, but it's so small it really doesn't matter. The size pots we're using at this point are, we can cook one thing at a time. So when I'm making the menu, like I have to take that into account. And the menu had always been kind of pretty much the same when I was doing pop-ups. And I made little changes here and there. But I designed the menu, which is just, I mean, the overall idea of the menu is just straightforward picnic barbecue, like cook, like it's ribs, brisket, house-made sausage, pulled pork, coleslaw, potato salad, mac and cheese, collard greens, and beans. Like that's it. I mean, it's a basic, standard copy paste barbecue joint. We just try and do everything really well. But I had to, work around the limited stove space. I thought my 250-gallon offset smoker was going to be big enough when we started, and I was proven wrong after 2 weekends, and immediately got a 500-gallon, and then now we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, like this isn't this. If we keep going like this, we're gonna have to get about which is great. It's amazing, but none of that really changes the fact that I can only cook 1 to 2. I can do like 2 pots of water for mac noodles, like at a time on the stove. But like it's the most linear kitchen that I've ever seen. Like it's very, very challenging to do.
It's like a submarine kitchen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But just time wise, everything is incredibly linear. I can't stack, I can't have 3 different, I can't have collard greens, wilting down in one giant pot while I'm making, sauce for mac and cheese in another pot while I'm cooking beans in another big pot because I don't have that room. So, then it becomes like otherwise one person in one day could make everything super easy, no sweat. But I can only have like if I have the beans on, there's now not enough room for mac and cheese. There's not enough room for greens. I mean, the wall is, I don't know. Oh, I know. The wall is exactly as far as the fire code says it has to be from the side of the stove. Yeah, that's the answer. But
Yeah, they
it's
really
it's
built
like
that thing right in
it's
there.
tight, dude. It's tight. Like the whole room is just basically a little wider than the stove, and there's a couple counters in there, and that's it. So, when it comes to adding desserts, it's I try and we only have two. We do a banana pudding and key lime pie or key lime pudding, and the key lime is like it never touches heat. It's super super simple, just real key lime juice, sweetened condensed milk, lime zest, mix that together, whip some cream, hold those together, and build it in the cups with ginger snaps and make a little meringue to top it off, get a little toast, and I as we add things to the menu, I have to like make sure that we can work it into the schedule because we're going to get to the point where the volume, hopefully, we're going to get to the point where the volume is so much that we need some more people and later hours because and that's where it's troublesome is the only way we once we get to like max capacity and critical mass at the restaurant for what we can produce, the only option is either rent space at another commercial kitchen somewhere else, or the restaurant becomes 24-hour just production kitchen, and that's a pretty big decision.
Yeah, I want to talk about a lot of these things. I want to talk about, that's why I'm definitely want to have you back. I want to talk about building a team based on your experience because you have one of the best companies in the industry from a corporate standpoint, training programs, all of that. It built teams. Now you've got to reduce it down. I would call, we're going to simmer it down. We're going to reduction sauce it all, and that's what you're doing in your business and then trying to build a business. So I want to talk about that. And that's one of the questions I still have here. I have a bunch of other questions that I usually send for part twos, but I have culinary questions around what you're doing in the space. How do you elevate what you're doing? Those are things for the next episode, just things to think about. I can send them all to you also, but just for the crowd, the audience, because I know you guys are going to send questions too, probably. I would really love to do another one, Jeremy,
Oh
because I
yeah,
think
no.
there's your wealth of knowledge, the export of knowledge, your experience where you are as an entrepreneur. I think the forging that's going on based on the skills that you've been given and the seeds that have been planted is worth talking more about as well, and mentors and role models and things like that along your journey. All those things I want to get into. Where can they find you online? Where can they find you if they're in California and Stockton? All of these things.
So our website is smokemeatbbq.com. There's no and in that. Just smokemeatbbq.com. It's got, a good amount of information. It's not the best site, but it's not the worst. I made it, in a couple hours. But, we're not an incredibly, I really push to get people to come in. We don't do online orders. We don't do catering. Or we do definitely do catering. We don't do phone orders. But so smokemeatbbq.com. Instagram is at smoke and meat BBQ, all spelled out because no ampersand, damn it. You could, I think Facebook is technically like Facebook / Cali Smoke and Meat BBQ because there was I think a Finnish place called Smoke and Meat BBQ that got just the straight one. So it's Cali, CALI, Smoke and Meat BBQ on Facebook. And if you're in town, we are at 915 North Yosemite Street in Stockton, 95203. Phone number is 209-888-4276, or as my wife duly pointed out, 209-888-GASM if you are in need of a meatgasm.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I was like, babe, I had to get a random number. I got 888-4276. The only thing I could figure out is 888 harm, and that's not cool. She was like, babe, it says 888 gasm. Oh, yes. But I still haven't had the balls to post that.
I think you'll get there when it's time for the marketing and saying,
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the whole, yeah, part of the grand scheme, but it fits perfectly.
awesome. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming on the show. I, if you need the link again to sign up, I'll send it to you. For the audience out there, it's a good point. If you guys know entrepreneurs or people in the food, beverage, farming, hospitality, nutrition industry that would be interested in being on the show, there is a link in the show notes for a calendar for you guys to sign up. Also, since everyone's been asking, and I've gone back to episodes that are releasing as I'm recording this and posted, but all the links for Gorilla Brave are also in the show notes for you guys. So I don't have to say it anymore repetitively on the show as much, but the actual links and all that, they're all in there for you guys. But yeah, thank you, Jeremy. I'll send you the calendar again. Definitely following you in all those places. You'll see that coming. I really enjoy the conversation, your knowledge, the story of the food, your ability to talk about it and convey what's really going on. And I understood it at a whole new level, and I've been in this game a long time. I think it's important that we continue to tell the story. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking the time and signing up. It really means a lot to me. Today, I learned a lot. So thank you for that. Everyone in the audience, please like, share, follow on social media the entrepreneurs that are on the show. Also, if you're
And I would
in
love
those
to
areas,
answer some questions from them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. If you heard that, Jeremy would love questions from you guys. So if you want to send them in, you guys know we can do it over Instagram or over email. Both work. And Facebook, I think we can take messaging now, but I'm not positive. But you can do it on there as well. So thank you guys. I love you guys. I appreciate everyone listening in. You can find this show on Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iTunes, and I swear like 27 to 33 to I don't even know how many more syndications now, because podcast channels are sort of getting consolidated between all the conglomerates now, soaked up, but they all still exist. But it means syndication automatically through those channels. So, and then on a world level, there are multiple podcast channels as well. So seeing that grow, I appreciate it. And everyone worldwide that's listening in and the growth there, I appreciate you guys for that and all the support, all the questions coming internationally, all the requests to be on the show internationally. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. I'm out.